Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Desi Connection. My guest today is Owais Baig. He basically worked in a creative agency for a very long time, but recently left it to do his further studies of masters in Germany. I'm going to talk to him about his journey, and I'm going to talk to him about the different aspects of creative agencies, the advertising space within the Middle East, Pakistan, and Europe. So stick around and let's see what he has to say. Baig Saab, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on. कैसे हो यार?
Sir, thank you very much for having me. Alhamdulillah, all good, all good. आप बताएं, long time no see.
Long time no see. And surprisingly, with the fact कि हम दोनों एक ही मुल्क में आजकल रह रहे हैं, लेकिन मुलाकात नहीं हुई. तो थोड़ा सा अपनी जर्नी के बारे में बताओ. You're currently in Germany, but where in Germany?
So I shifted here a year back exactly. It's been
Mhm.
मतलब इस महीने it's been exact 1 year, and I am in Dessau right now,
ठीक है.
where the legendary Bauhaus is. So I came here because I got enrolled into a master's program in integrated design at the Bauhaus. So yeah, I've been doing that since the past year. It's been interesting. तो इसलिए अभी तक इतनी the travel and all hasn't really started and it hasn't kicked in as such because it
Okay.
literally took me like a year to gel in into everything.
Right. And speaking about, education once again, अब हम उस उम्र के हिस्से में हैं कि education के अलावा हम ये भी सोचते हैं कि career बनाना है. तो why did you think about starting education again?
Yeah, it was actually a very random decision. It was I hadn't planned it. I never saw myself doing a masters ever in my life. Like since bachelor's कोई मेरा वो नहीं था इरादा. And especially since I started my own creative agency at a very young age. I had like 2 years, 2.5 years of experience right after graduation, after which I started Phreakin. So because of that, I got to train a lot of people who already had master's degrees. So academically, they were like qualified way more than I was, but उनको काम नहीं आता था. Because so that's when I understood that having a degree and having professional experience is like it's like poles apart. So it was never part of the plan. That doing a master's ever. So it's been and I graduated in 2008, so good 15, 16 years. So it's a lot of things have changed, and I think it was also a very good break that I needed from advertising because I've been in advertising since all this time, and advertising sucks the blood out of you. And now I think it's also a young man's profession, the age. And now, I mean, I just turned 40 last month, so it really takes a toll on you. So it was a point where I really needed like a sabbatical to step back and see, अच्छा यार, what do I want in life. ठीक है, और मुल्कों में agency, you'll open more offices, you'll have a bigger team, you'll have more clients, you'll have more awards, like, but it's the same drill all over again. So I also found myself stuck creatively and professionally. So I was like, just screw this. I'll just,
At the end of the day, why Germany then?
So then again, also very random, never planned. So this one point in which I was once thinking that I was okay, yaar, if I do a master's program, where would I go ever? Like just a hypothetical, would you having a smoke over coffee with friends and just talking things out loud. Then I was like, yeah, I'd really like to go to the Bauhaus, study there because Bauhaus movement was like a big thing in design. And apparently it was very popular in my bachelor university also. A lot of NCA graduates eventually go to Bauhaus for some reason. So I think it was there in the back of my mind somehow. And then because my wife also finished her masters from the Charité at Berlin, so Germany kind of made sense because she had been here, qualified from here. ये वो. तो is it was very random, but somehow the dots were connected. So I was like, let's just give it a try. So I applied and got accepted.
When you compare actually your experience from NCA, from college days, and now Bauhaus, how does it compare? क्या similarities है, क्या differences है? How would you put it?
Okay, so there's, I think, two to three different categories in which you can compare these. So first is I'm not in that age at all. I was the uncle in the class, although the looks deceive. Nobody believed that I was 40, because kids were like 25, 26. Sabse bada, the eldest would be like 30, 32 years old, still like 8 years younger. So I was studying with people who were at least 15 to 16 years younger to me, like literally Gen Z. ठीक है?
Yeah.
So there was a big generation gap, like, and it was very very apparent. So there was a problem with, let's say, connecting with everybody, because of course they're in a different age, a different time zone, a different phase in their life. I'm in a different phase altogether. So there was a barrier over there, which unfortunately, even with assignments and all the interactions, it couldn't be bridged. So that was that. I was, of course, way more
Was that a
mature.
positive or a negative? Was it a challenge? Yeah,
Yeah,
it was just there.
it was just there. I think it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was positive or negative. It was very. It was a different kind of an experience, because when you're in your bachelor's, it's generally in your early 20s or your late teens, and of course, your mindset, your experience, your maturity isn't developed as such. Right now, I'm now doing my master's. I'm almost done with it. I'm a father. I have a child. I have a wife. I have my family here. These kids, they like, with them, it's about partying and, going
Yeah.
out all night, etc. And they're like, yeah, you're so boring. And I'm laughing. I'm like, you don't even understand. If I was in your position, I would exactly say this to this older guy.
Absolutely.
You never come to gatherings. You just take the class and you go away. You're very boring and all. I'm like, you have no idea. It's just that I'm in a very different stage in life. So it
Mm.
was nice in that aspect. It was very good to interact with youngsters again, because in advertising, a very big challenge that we faced was to understand Gen Z. And now literally spending a year with them, understanding their problems, their mindsets, and what their challenges are in life, it was an interesting experience. And of course, there's also this multicultural aspect. So it's not just the Germans. The interaction with Germans was very less, because international students, it's a separate masters. German masters is a separate master, so it's just a couple of courses that you have combined, like, but not the whole main shebang. So that's the first aspect. The second would be the culture, because there were so many ethnicities, so there was no culture as per se. And then coming from Pakistan, we're very culturally rich in that manner. So the culture aspect that did not exist over here, because of which there were very less social interactions. So then the weather, of course, is also one part. So a lot of things were very secluded and dissected. Like, the Persians would only interact with the Persians. The Indians would interact with Indians. Pakistanis would interact with Pakistanis. It was very rare that all of them would combine, unless of course they're partying. Other than that, there was no go. Thirdly, to my surprise, NCA had way more character. NCA had a lot more to offer compared to the Bauhaus, and which made me, think why that was the case. And one reason that I now know for sure is that NCA, like, literally, to this year, 2024, marks 150 years of NCA's existence. So NCA has been there for 150 years, which is, so many generations. And my father studied from NCA. He graduated in 1975. Like 30 years down the line, I studied from NCA. There were so many similarities in the culture, in the life of the campus and all, that didn't exist here. So this the Bauhaus University, and Halt is the name because they can't use the Bauhaus as an official name. These guys started around 13 years back, so there's no comparison in that manner. And because NCA had that vast culture, that vast history, a lot of the curriculum was exactly what the Bauhaus is offering.
Really?
Yeah, so that was very, very surprising. Yeah, but NCA was also more inclusive. Bauhaus,
Yeah.
the experience is not inclusive like that.
But then for people who want to probably come and experience Bauhaus because of advertising, creative design, etc., what is that main field that you think Bauhaus really stands out for?
So I think the main aspect wouldn't be the academics as per se. It's A, the professors, yes. B, it's the methodology, of the teaching. So in NCA and in Pakistan and India in the subcontinent, a lot of like students, they had this challenge that we come from a mindset in which education is very it's a one-sided communication, right?
Fair.
It's very
Yeah.
dictatorial. Yeah, it's a teacher ne keh diya, so it's this way. It's my way or the highway. If you have to, convince you can't convince the teacher. You have to do what the teacher is telling you. If you go the other way around, so there's ego wars, there's so many other things that didn't exist here. So over here it's more about the process. It's about learning methodologies. It's about exchange of ideas. No idea is a bad idea. If the teacher has way more experience than you and is way more accomplished, the teacher will not make sure that he belittles you. That is a very big difference. So it's the methodology. So over here, I think it's the environment of free ideas, of how to think. It's very, very human centric. That wasn't there in the subcontinent. So yeah, I think these two three things are so. Of course, it opens your mind way more. It opens expands your horizon to a level that you wouldn't really get because of the cultural differences that they're there.
And then, generally speaking, I think international communities come with their own different sets of ideas. They have their own creative background, cultural background, which influences what they do and say. So, obviously, that kind of gels together to give a completely different experience. So, based on that, because you were working with people from so many different parts of the world,
Yeah.
what was that one experience that you felt made it stand out for you as something that was beyond just studies? It was the interaction with the people. What did you really enjoy about that?
So I really enjoyed the freedom, the freedom of thought, which is very weird because it's so usually heard of that unless you experience it, you don't really understand what the essence is. Then there are a lot of things which happen in our parts of the world, in like Pakistan, the Middle East, and all, which are they're doing those things because everybody else is doing it. Over here there's
True.
a reason for it. Over here there's a concept behind things. Like, for example,
Yeah.
one thing I could never grasp in the Middle East is talking about sustainability and eco-friendliness. I'm like, how can the Middle East even talk about it, or even like, you're the most least sustainable region in the world. You can't be sustainable, like geographically and naturally you can't be doing that. But every brand is talking about sustainability. Over here we actually understood what sustainability is.
Yeah.
What human centric design, your human centric thinking is, for example.
Okay.
So
Good.
yeah, this was one very interesting aspect, the freedom of thought.
Okay. Now coming to your experiences, Big Sub, you have what, over 15, 20 years of advertising creative experience. You started different companies, you set up in the Middle East, and you also had offices in Pakistan. We worked together on multinational projects, and I always found you to be a very creative person. So you have the experience of seeing advertising in the Middle East as well as in Pakistan. And with your experience of studies in Germany, you've also probably experienced the advertising aspects within Europe. How would you compare the three regions, the subcontinent, the Middle East, and Europe, in terms of, let's say, creative idea first, and then we can further delve into different aspects?
Whoa. So okay. A very interesting question. So I think I'll start with Pakistan because that's where I was born and raised. And of course, my journey in advertising, my own journey started in when I graduated.
Yeah.
But because of my father, I got exposed to this this part of the industry or in this industry in general at a very young age. So I knew when I was 10, 11 years old that I wanted to study visual communication design. I wanted to go to NCA. I wanted to do advertising. I was very, very clear. And this wasn't forced. It was because I saw my father. So he had his design studio. Back then, printing was a very big industry. TV wasn't that big, in the late 80s, in the 90s. So whenever I would go to the office, my father has like music on. There's a couple of these designers. This is coloring, and I'm like, wow, man, what a profession to be in. You're listening to music, you're coloring, and you're just making money. Wow, amazing.
Mm.
So there was that difference in that era, and when I graduated was literally when the iPhone was invented. So digital started coming up. So there was already a lot of changes going on within that time frame. In Pakistan, it was then again it was more about doing things because you're supposed to do things versus there's a track or there's an aim that needs to be there. Like everybody's doing something because it needs to be done. When I went to the Middle East, but then again, that has its own advantages. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing because in that, then you learn how to produce more or be productive in limited resources, and then how to bypass the system to get things done. So that was very interesting in Pakistan. When I went to the Middle East was all bling, bang, shebang, premium, exquisite. You have it big, I'll make it bigger. It was all about lavishness. It was about spending, was making you, giving you a pedestal and aapki puja kare. Matlab, it was that. There was a lot of
The
money. Everything
experience,
was,
the customer
yeah,
satisfaction, the
it was way larger than life. Like literally, the billboards are like as big as a university campus. The Middle East billboards are bigger than a campus in, let's say, one of the universities here. So
yeah.
in the Middle East, everything was grand. It had to be the best. It had to be better than the other. So that was a very interesting shift. Over here now, yes, I've been enrolled in the masters, but at the same time, I'm also now consulting a couple of startups. Over here, things are very, very different. It's not the kind of pressure that you have in the Middle East or in Pakistan. You don't have that pressure here because it's very human centric. It's human first. So even when doing these assignments that we had in our masters, I kind of got stuck at point in things like, okay, what's going to be the end result? And I had to unlearn all of that, that the end result does not matter. What you need to do is identify what problem you're solving and how you can make somebody's life better and the planet better. Now, these are all very hypothetical situations, even in the Middle East and in Pakistan. But over here, you're actually working to make, human life better. Like, I was surprised. This one time I had the session with a professor. I was like, okay, once I do the masters, I don't want to do advertising anymore. But it's the only thing I know. Of course, I know content and all of this. So, what profession would I go in after my masters? She's like, any profession. I'm like, I mean, what pays well? She's like, what kind of a question is that? I said, I mean, I got into advertising because it's a well paying profession. I like it, etc., etc. But she's like, "Yeah, you see that guy over there? I'm like, yeah. You know what profession he's in? I'm like, no, he's a bird watcher. Huh? Bird watcher? Like all he does is what he has a binocular. He goes into the forest and these parks and just observes birds. I'm like, yeah, and he makes a good living out of it. So over here, it's not about what profession you're in. Just in Pakistan, you have to be a doctor or
Yeah.
an engineer
Engineer.
to be, and there's this prestige over there. Over here, everybody was very, very equal. So these are, and the same thing then applies to the industries also. So if I'm let's say an advertising expert, no, they will take me as an expert. If my CV has 15, 16 years of experience of proven track record, they would take me as somebody who is an expert in the industry, and they would listen no matter how big they are in terms of size and scale. This did not happen in the Middle East or in Pakistan. So this is a
So,
very, very
in
big
a way
difference.
speaking, if I was to put it into a nutshell, Pakistan is follow the rules and the templates that have been set up and try to
Yeah.
get things done as quickly and as cheaply as possible. In the Middle East, you have more of the shebang, the glitz and glamour of things, and everything has to be big and bigger. But
Yep.
in Europe, it's more of the human element and trying to actually figure out what that person's value would be out of using this product. So, is this some sort of maybe a transition that might happen in the other two regions that you're seeing in Europe? Or are they just completely separate spheres of creative thinking?
So, in the Middle East, what I observed was that the next generation, which is the current Gen Z, they are very, very aware of all of this, because, of course, they go to all these international universities in the States and Europe and all, and then they go back to the Middle East, and then there's, as you remember, there's emiratization
Yeah,
going on, if that's the term, in
yeah.
which so they're working towards it. Yes, in the Middle East, that's already taking place. But of course, there's a lot of factors that play. The weather, for example. So whatever they do, they can't be sustainable. The weather is not in their favor. In Pakistan, sadly, it's the system that's rotten the country. So unless the system is there, you can't really uplift anybody or empower anybody, because in Pakistan it becomes an everyday survival. In the Middle East, it's kind of like, okay, man, I'll hustle and I'll probably get my way through it. Over here, it's about, okay, let me see how I can serve.
Okay.
So yeah,
It
that's
it's
I think
always going to be different then
it
probably
it, it, it
until
will be different.
situations change.
Exactly.
Okay. Within the aspect of creativity, you've done a lot in terms of content creation. You've seen digital come in front of you. I've seen some of your, um, would I call it fonts or calligraphy? What क्या उसको मैं कहूँ? Your play with words and fonts and everything.
Yeah,
So
type
typography.
experimental typography. Yeah.
Huh. What as an advertiser did you enjoy the most? Did you enjoy the idea process? Did you enjoy the creative process? Did you enjoy the production process? You've done it all. Where was your heart the most satisfied?
So, to be honest, my by core, I'm a design enthusiast. I love
Mm.
design, but with time, I saw the value of design change. It deteriorated like anything. When I also started learning graphic design, which was in the mid 90s, mid late 90s, it was a very manual work, manual work oriented industry. So computers weren't really, I mean, in this part of the world, yes, the computers were there, people were already shifting. In Pakistan, that shift happened in the late mid 90s. So I saw that shift. I saw my father going through that. So first you had to have those skills. You had to, for you to be a designer, you had to be an artist. You had to learn the craft first. It wasn't like, hey, I'll just learn Photoshop and now I'm a designer. Now that this it's this weird concept. So with time, that has changed. uh, so there was a very artistic essence in that aspect. So I really loved doing design. So I started my design journey very early. When I graduated, then I understood that, okay, as a designer, I have a cap on my growth. I can just be a layout artist. At most, I'll be an art director, because in order for me to, let's say, sell, I have to learn the art of pitching, the art of presentation. I have to learn, how to come up with ideas, how to come up with good copy, and then understanding the client. And also, then I understood that, okay, design will only take me this far. If I have to go further and excel, I have to learn a lot more things. So with all these steps, I've thoroughly enjoyed everything, thoroughly. But my core, if I was to, let's say, today I had the option of having that same value in design as my father did, for example, because I'll tell you a very interesting story. My father told me once. That the first project that he had in Pakistan in 75 when he graduated was worth 75,000 rupees.
That time.
75,000 rupees today you don't get.
Wow.
75,000 at that time was, I mean, he built his own houses in, like, a couple of years and all. Design was that highly valued. Now as an agency, what we do is we give design for free because we have to. We'll probably make money out of production or some other aspects, or some commissions, but design has no value anymore. So yeah, if I was to choose, I would say I really love to design, but sadly it's not sustainable anymore.
This actually brings me to the next question, which is basically going to happen. What do you think about AI in terms of improving or making design more redundant? How do you see the value of AI in today's creative space?
So I think AI is a wonderful, wonderful tool. It's made the process so simplified, so easier. And then again, I was very receptive of it. I did not. No, I mean, I'm all in favor of AI. I don't think it's yes, it's come to stay. The only people who do feel threatened are those who don't want to change and who don't want to adapt. Because I literally saw my father go through this journey. Imagine in one city there would be like two designers, because who would go through the hassle of learning how to paint, how to draw, how to do typography, and then learn graphic design. So you would have like one, two, maximum four designers in one city. Then the computers came in, and suddenly, uh, when you apply a gradient, for example, which is mixing two
Yeah,
colors, in Photoshop, how much time does it take? You can do that in PowerPoint. It's like 1 second.
few seconds. Yeah,
This used to be a half an hour job, at least a half an hour job for somebody who had mastered his skill, how to breathe, how to be, fluent with the spray gun and all. All of that was now one click because the computers came in. And now, instead of relying on his skill and on his expertise on the craft that he mastered, he had to learn Photoshop. He had to learn, a software. He had to learn a mouse. And so, these things have always been there. Technology keeps on evolving. Even in our times when, the iPhone came about, UX. So my first job was a UX designer, which was 2008. 2008, 2009, and it wasn't like a very interesting field as it is now, because everybody wants to do UX. So things just keep on changing, and it's the exact same thing with the AI revolution also. So I think it's here to stay. It's brilliant. It's phenomenal. Things that I used to do, which used to take me, let's say, 2 days, now take you like 5 minutes. So AI, I think, is brilliant.
but then I think AI doesn't necessarily remove the creativity from the person, but makes it easier to be more creative. So you need to have that sense of aesthetics before you can actually start looking into AI improving what you already think you want to produce, right?
Definitely, sir. It's a tool. It's a tool. So
Mm,
unless you and the tools keep on evolving, the tools keep on changing. It doesn't take away from the fact that you have to be trained a certain way. The dilemma with creativity and with design is that it's visual, and everybody is a born visual artist. Everybody has a critique. Everybody has their own aesthetic sense. So creativity becomes very, very subjective. So
yeah,
now with AI, and with also with like these platforms like Canva, so
absolutely.
these lines are being blurred out. Now
Mm.
everybody can design. But if it's a good design or a bad design, that becomes very, very subjective. But AI, yes, it's a tool. For people will still need to learn how to master that skill and craft to have that, because it's practice. You have to train your eye, your brain a certain way. It's just like any other profession. Is sadly we don't take it as a profession because it has to do with visual.
So you mentioned something interesting and brings me to my other question. Creativity is subjective. We've always known this, and there are different aspects of your life that impact your creativity. अब तुम आए हो पाकिस्तान से, कोई आया है इंडिया से, कोई आया है इंग्लैंड से, हर बंदे के अपने कल्चर, अपना बैकग्राउंड उसे इम्पैक्ट करेगा. And at the same time, the world is very global. ठीक है, so you're sitting right now in Germany as a Pakistani. How do you think your background in terms of aesthetics and creativity, the way you see it from your cultural understanding, has given you any kind of difference, or has it made it difficult for you to establish yourself as a freelancer or a consultant in Germany?
So I think I believe that I've been very very fortunate and grateful because I had a very interesting journey, throughout, because being exposed to the industry and having a father who was in the same profession, I had a very unfair advantage, with compared to the rest of the students that were here. Of course, the experience bit was there and all, but yeah, culture and this exposure makes a whole lot of a difference, because then you don't have a linear way of thinking. You have so many exposures. You've been exposed to so many different situations, different ways of doing things, ways of communicating, ways of going about things, that it becomes an advantage. Initially I was very scared, to be honest. I was like, I don't know how I'll survive, because technically, if you look at my trajectory and my journey, it's like, okay, 14 years in the Middle East, usse pehle, Pakistan, now here. So okay, what is this guy all about? He's like, he's not even consistent in one region. So the only consistency that I've had is my own, running my own agency, and that too now I've shut down, because now I wanted to have fresh start. uh, Culture and how you have experienced all these things, they play a very very important part. If I had not experienced, let's say, the lack of a system in Pakistan, I would not have learned how to find newer ways, or maneuver, or iterate, or improvise. Like over here, people go by the book, completely by the book. Like if you call a bank and the customer service, and you like, hey, this is a problem that I have, and if it's not in their standard book, they won't accommodate you. In Pakistan, on the other hand, they will literally look for solutions, and they'll solve the problem for you. So with culture, and for in the Middle East, for example, this thing is not possible, is not a question, is not a solution.
It's about how much you're willing to pay.
It's dependent on how much you're willing, how much exactly you're willing to pay, and how much you want to, how badly you want it. Like,
Yeah,
we'll create the biggest skyscraper in the world.
yeah.
We'll create uh, an island in the sea.
Y-
And it's going to be like high rise buildings. So the culture and the experiences that you have in different markets and all, they play a very important part. So I think I've
So
I've been very, very
that
fortunate.
do you think that creatively, people coming from Pakistan have opportunities in Europe? Especially, let's talk about Germany because that's where you are. So, if somebody from Pakistan with a creative background was to settle in Germany, do you think they have opportunities, or they have to carve out their own opportunities?
So the opportunities for sure are there. That's without doubt. The opportunities are there. It's about then again, it's a long race, because over here, for example, in one is the cultural aspect in Pakistan. Now with the advent of social media, Pakistan and Pakistanis are way more exposed than they were when we were in college, for example. So they can learn the aspect of learning, of being exposed, what's happening in, let's say, Europe and Germany. They have it in their phones now. Over here, but then again, there's so much competition. So compare a Pakistani 13-year-old with, let's say, a German 13-year-old. A German 13-year-old knows how to go about in life. he would he would be in a different state of mind. In Pakistan, there's so many cultural dilemmas, there's so much baggage that they have, that which is from family, from society, from the lack of system. It becomes relatively difficult for them to adapt here, which is just mental, right? Once they cross this mental barrier, you will see Pakistanis thrive like anything, because they over there, there's so much baggage that they have. Over here, when they come here, they have to get rid of that baggage, and that is the most difficult part. Once they get rid of that baggage, they do wonders. I think there's a lot of scope. Pakistan has a lot of talent. It's just in a sad state of affairs. That's it. Nothing else.
Has
Over here, they can prove their metal if they're willing enough. Yes.
Okay. Has language been a barrier for you to find opportunities in Germany? And if so, how have you overcome that?
So it's one of the biggest challenges, yes. And currently, I am learning Deutsch. I just literally started last week, because I'm the kind of person who cannot multitask. If I am doing one thing, I will be doing one thing. So if I was doing my masters, I will just be doing my masters. I can't do language at the same time and then work at the same time. So it's work, family, masters. Language, I was like, I'll do once the masters ends. So the language, to be honest, has been a barrier, but it's not been a barrier in that manner for me, because what the language barrier stops me from my experience, gives me. So my experience compensates for the whole thing, basically. So I think I've been very fortunate in that manner. But yes, language is a very very important part. Your आपकी जो opportunities हैं, they increase for sure.
How has the experience been for you in Germany, studying, setting up your own consultancy, while also having a family and a young kid with you? Has that been different, difficult? How have you faced it?
Yeah, it's been, to be honest, it's been nerve wracking. It's been draining. It's been very very difficult. But I think I'm the kind of person who likes these kind of challenges. So, मतलब वो है ना, if something is easy, I will not take it for sure. I want to make my life harder. So I think because of that, I kind of enjoyed it. A lot of times, so I'm sure it's the same with you also, because mashallah, you have
Yeah.
two daughters. So yours will be 10x of what I'm going through. So with me, it's been very recent, because my daughter started her school a couple of weeks back.
Okay.
So changing the whole routine. I've always been an early riser. So maneuvering to a new routine wasn't that difficult. But yes, juggling uh, college expectations, in terms of, because if I had to do it on my own, it would be completely smooth. I know exactly how to compartmentalize my time, how to divide. I know this is my area when I'm most productive. I'll do the assignments. The problem was when in the universities, you have group assignments, and that's there in every class, every subject, right? Then people are, of course, these guys are in a different state of mind. They would start last minute. I sleep at like maximum 10 p.m. because I wake up at 5 a.m. These guys would, like, it was difficult managing the expectations. If I had to do it on my own, it wouldn't have been that big of a problem. But it was difficult. It wasn't easy for sure.
And where do you see yourself now being in Germany? What are your future plans? How do you imagine Owais Baig moving forward?
So, for the longest of times, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I knew what I wanted to do, the profession I wanted to be in, what I wanted to study when I was 10 years old. And then when I was in my bachelor's, I made a list of, a to-do list, things I want in life, and I thought it would take like a lifetime. It actually took 10 years tops. And then I dragged it for another 5 years. I was like, okay, एक से दो ऑफिस कर लेते हैं और clients कर लेते हैं, let's expand horizontally. Let's now get into content, make a content wing, let's become an influencer yourself, start making content yourself. Let's, start. So I started doing all these things. It hit a saturation point. When it hit a saturation point, I realized these are the only things that I know, and I've just been, going about टक्कर मारते हुए दीवारों पे ना. So now I'm in that position where if this is the most difficult question for me, I have absolutely no idea. Now advertising, branding, specialization in content, marketing, these are the things that I have a proven track record, but I'm also fed up of, because I've been running my own thing since the past 15 13 14 years. So do I want to do that again? What other opportunities do I have in this part of the world? So I'm exploring. Of course, it would be stupid of me to not cash in on the experience and the proven track record that I have. But I think over here there would be more opportunities that I could explore, rather than just relying on, let's say, advertising or branding. So I'm looking at it as we speak, to be honest.
Youngsters in Pakistan, all over the world, uh, they try to go for different opportunities. If somebody in Pakistan is listening to this podcast, how can they try and come to Germany for studies in creative design or UX, UI? What do you recommend for them?
As an industry, or like specifically as a design industry, or like studying in general?
Generally, even to study in Germany. And then, if you want, you can be more specific about that particular field that you did. But how would you tell them to go about trying to come and study in Germany? What do they need to do?
Well, it's to be honest, it's kind of very it's a little difficult from Pakistan because of the political reasons and all these things that are not in any Pakistani's control. So the getting an embassy appointment in Pakistan from Pakistan is a very big problem. There's like a year to 2 years waiting, which is unheard of.
Ridiculous.
Completely ridiculous. So over here it's not like other parts, people from other parts of the world don't have this problem. Like people from Iran, Iraq, Sri Lanka, India, they also do have these problems, but their waiting time is not as much as it is in Pakistan. So if you want to apply, you need to understand, you need to know that there's a long wait which you can't bypass, sadly. So if you want to do it, let's say, in the next semester, expect that it's going to happen after a year or almost 2 years. So start early, A. B, look for universities that are public, because public universities don't have that bigger of a fee structure compared to the private universities. So like the Bauhaus, this university is also a public university. So public universities का सिर्फ जो challenge है वो is that getting into a public university is difficult, because of course, because of the fee structure and everything, there's so many things. So getting into a university is kind of a little difficult, but it's not impossible. So go for public universities, no matter which industry you're in creative, in tech, in whatever. So public universities should be the go-to. Once you get there, then understand what is expected out of you, because you will adapt in the university and in the curriculums and all. It's adapting to the culture. It's coming here and expecting what's next, how to get the accommodations, the language being the biggest barrier, the cultural shock that you'll get, the homesickness that you'll get. So getting into the university and getting accustomed to the curriculum is the easiest part. So it's more about getting into that tough mindset. कि यार, a lot of these students, what happens is कि वो within the first month they're like, we miss home, अम्मी अब्बू याद आ रहे हैं, खाने याद आ रहे हैं, दोस्त याद आ रहे हैं, things like these. So you have to bypass all of that, because that I've seen has become a very, very big challenge for Pakistanis in general over here. So yeah, I think it's the rest is pretty simple. It's just these
Picking
mental
up the
blocks.
language maybe during this time is also important. Pick up the
Language,
language back
very
home.
very important, very important.
Yeah. Okay. So, Big Sap, thank you so much for your time. But before we end, I always have a couple of questions which I ask my friends. More like rapid fire, simple, straightforward, nothing too difficult, but you have to answer really quickly, right?
Okay.
Okay. Um, Simple first question. Desi food या foreign food?
Oh, so desi sir, मतलब any given day.
Had to bring back the Kaba days.
Either to so one thing that was very interesting was कि either because of the halal haram and the lack of desi food, uh,
Yeah.
we started eating way healthier. But then again, you crave for the desi food,
Yeah.
so we've become like really good cooks ourselves now, which
You
is
were
amazing.
always a good cook, I remember. So उसमें तो इतना मसला नहीं. You just added some more skills to it,
Some
probably.
more skill set, but yeah, now I think wo is it. Now I'm literally thinking of also getting into a restaurant business. To be honest, I've
Not
perfected
bad,
my
yeah.
burger recipe. I've perfected all these recipes. So desi
Yeah,
food
yeah,
se.
this is something I've always been thinking about, and I keep telling my wife कि हमें food truck करना चाहिए.
हाँ हाँ
So
definitely.
I don't want to sit at home. Food truck करना है.
Yeah.
बच्चे जाएं पढ़ाई करने. हम जाएं food truck लेके different locations पे.
Exactly.
अच्छा. Next question. चाय fanatic या coffee?
Coffee se coffee. Any given day.
ये वैसे बड़ी हैरत की बात है. मैं आहिस्ता-आहिस्ता मैं देख रहा हूँ कि बहुत लोगों से जिनसे मैं बात कर रहा हूँ, वो कॉफ़ी के बहुत बड़े एडिक्ट्स हैं एज़ अपोज़्ड टू चाय, व्हिच इज़ क्वाइट सरप्राइजिंग.
Sir, it was, I think it started from my house. My father loved coffee. Nobody in my house ever drank tea. मतलब माई मदर यूज टू, लेकिन बहुत कम उस तरह से. हम तो हमारे घर में ना वो था ही नहीं, कभी रिवाज ही नहीं था चाय का. माई वाइफ ऑन द अदर हैंड इज अ चाय फैनेटिक. शी वुड हैव लाइक 5 cups a day. you know so
सेम.
so उस वजह से आई हैव टू ड्रिंक टी बिकॉज that's one thing that we share. कि
ऑफ
चलो
कोर्स
यार चाय
ये तो
टाइम है,
चीज़
शाम को चाय पी लेते हैं हम लोग. बट आई डोंट लाइक चाय एट
चलो
ऑल.
गुड है. अच्छा, you've already mentioned you're a morning person, but are you a winter person, summer person?
Sir, I used to think that I was a winter person when I was in the Middle East, and when I was in Pakistan, I used to love winters. एक विंटर गुजारा है मैंने इधर. मेरी तौबा सर विंटर से. No, sir. So I think depends on the region. In Dubai and Pakistan, I'm a winter person. In Europe, I'm a complete summer person.
यार it literally kills your motivation in winters just to get up, क्योंकि आप सुबह उठते हो तो अंधेरा होता है, ऑफिस से वापस आते हो अंधेरा
उफ.
होता है. आप कहते हो भाई ये क्या कहाँ आ गया हूँ मैं. तो
सर
इट्स
घर से
रियली अ
बाहर,
टफ वन.
या घर से बाहर निकलने के लिए यार इतनी लेयरिंग चढ़ानी पड़ेगी, दफा मारो अंदर ही बैठो.
अच्छा. If it wasn't advertising and creativity, what would have been Owais Baig's other profession?
Sir, I would have been a painter for sure. So because my father, he saw this thing in me, so he was like, because of course उनका वो पूरा background था, तो I started learning drawing and painting professionally at a very young age when I was 8 years old. In fact, from Saeed Akhtar.
Wow.
सो सईद साहब के, बिकॉज वो
Really?
अब्बू के टीचर भी थे, और ही वाज अ फैमिली फ्रेंड आल्सो. सो सईद साहब, इनफैक्ट आई रिमेंबर देयर वाज दिस टर्मिनेटर 2 आई थी, तो मैं आर्नल्ड श्वार्ज़नेगर की ना वो गन में बैठा होता है अपनी बाइक के ऊपर, आई वाज
हाँ.
मेकिंग दैट. सईद साहब वाज एट होम एट डिनर. He told my father, "Okay, send him to me tomorrow onwards. I want to teach him." So Saeed Saab ke paas I had been going since I was 8 years old. When I was in class 8, class 9, I could easily ace NCA's entry exams because my figurative drawing वगैरह पे आ चुका हुआ था.
Wow.
So Saeed Saab, my father and me, we always knew that I would be a painter. But it was a decision. जब मैंने actually NCA apply किया, तो मैंने painting में apply नहीं किया fine arts में. I applied in design because I was like, मैं fine arts में मतलब painting बनाता रहूँगा, खाऊंगा कहाँ से, पैसे कहाँ से कमाऊंगा.
ये मसले तो होते हैं. मैंने
So
भी
yeah.
वैसे आपस की बात है एनसीए के लिए अप्लाई किया था एंड स्केचिंग और ये वो हुसैन साहब के पास में जाता था सीखने.
अच्छा.
एंड वो जो होता है ना फिगरेटिव डिजाइन स्केचिंग,
जी जी
वो
जी.
मैंने शुरू की. मैंने कहा कि बंदा बैठा हुआ है, मैं ड्रॉ कर रहा हूँ, बहुत अच्छा है. साथ वाले को देखा, उसने तो ब्लैक एंड व्हाइट तस्वीर खींची हुई थी. मेरी तो पैक हो गई. मैंने कहा भाई यहाँ पर तो ये छोड़ते हैं, प्योर जो है ना कंप्यूटर्स और एमबीए की तरफ जाते हैं. तो that was always something I also wanted to be in product design, but I think I wasn't cut out
हाँ.
from a capability point of view, but aesthetically I always felt like I would have done something. तो मैं अपने कैंडल स्टैंड्स और इस तरह की चीजें बचपन में बना के बेचता था. तो पाकिस्तान में
Oh,
तो you sketch something, you take it, और वो लोहार जो है वो जाके कहता अच्छा ये तो मैं बना दूंगा. And I used to sell them for a while, for like
nice.
1 or 2 months. So, but good,
नहीं,
yeah.
वो क्रिएटिव
अच्छा,
स्पार्क तो है सर आप में फॉर श्योर, दैट आई नो।
हमेशा से होना चाहिए. वो तो हमने काम भी बड़े किए हुए हैं. तो
बहुत
अगर if you were to start being an influencer again, what would be the topic that you would pick up?
So that's something that I'm already thinking on, and I've been stuck. To be honest, it's been a year. I haven't been able to figure it out. I haven't been able to figure my positioning in that aspect. क्योंकि I content वाली चीज ना when we started doing our content, जब हमने content agency वाला wing अपना खोला and started getting into YouTube and all these things, it was very weird vlogging और ये वो सारा took me like a year to understand the whole how it works, how different all these platforms work and all. Then when Khaba picked up, and interestingly it picked up in India, and then it expanded in Pakistan में हमें कोई लिफ्ट नहीं गिरा था उस टाइम पे. जब इंडिया में हम वायरल हुए तो उसके बाद जो है ना ओ वाओ ये कोई कंटेंट क्रिएटर्स आ रहे हैं और ये वो. तो मेरा वो जो कीड़ा होता है ना कंटेंट का वो फंसा हुआ है अभी तक, वो निकला नहीं है पूरी तरीके से. And now I don't want to do the food thing, I don't want to do the the marketing advertising thing, so I'm still figuring that out कि वो exactly है क्या. And that inshallah soon I expect कि I'll get into it again. So I don't know abhi to be honest, I'm still figuring it out.
Chale Baig Saab, I wish you all the best, and I'm hoping that I continue to see you online, creatively grow, and your consultancy as well. We are in the same country, but somehow we still haven't been able to meet. So उम्मीद है कि वो भी हम करेंगे जल्द. So I wish you all the best. Thank you so much for taking out time during the weekend and during Ramzan, and I wish you all the best in your future endeavors.
Inshallah, sir. Thank you very much for having me. बाकी yes, of course, I will. मैं डसलडोर्फ का लगाता हूँ इंशाल्लाह चक्कर sometime soon.
Done it.
फिर
Done it.
मुलाकात करते हैं आपसे भी. So
Chale,
and
take
thank you
care,
very
Baig
much.
Saab.
It was lovely talking to you.
Talk to you soon then. Allah Hafiz. Bye
Okay
bye.
जी, खुदा हाफिज़. Bye bye.